Hey everybody, it's Jane. I hope you're having a fabulous summer. I fell in love with this complete Pretty Pink Posh release and I had to make a bunch of cards. I am showcasing 4 of them for you today. I just love the combinations of the surfboards and the never-ending colors. I will let you know that one of these days I will figure out this video and voiceover for card making, but for some reason my stamping and coloring did not record. So I wanted to let you know that I use some Zig Clean Colored clear brush markers and Copic markers for the surfboards and all Copics for everything else. There's nothing exciting about it. I just put the color down, did some basic blending. But I do have a trick on how to cut multiple die cuts, and that is going to be coming up next. So we're going to focus on cutting out the multiples, but I wanted to show you the cards up close so you could see them since I had a camera fail, and I'm sorry about that. And I just love the surfboards and the sentiments and everything about it. So I started out with the Tropical Toucans, and I cut them out. I colored them, and I'm cutting them in half, as you can see, and sorry about my spiky hair. And then what I do is I tape all of the die cuts, and I'm cutting that one out because I stamped it too close. I stamp all of the die cut, I tape all of the die cuts down, and then I put some press and seal on it, and I make sure it's on really, really tight and smooth, and I cut around that and I run that through my die cut machine. And I did use my Gemini Junior for this because I wanted some really good cuts. Make sure I rub it down, make sure it's really smooth. It's important that this crescent feels smooth so that when you use it again, it's all in the same place. So I ran that through my Gemini Junior, and I'm carefully pulling them out. They're a little bit sticky because of the press and seal. But you can see they cut out absolutely beautifully. The tree is a little tough to get out. And I did cut multiples of these because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I have that purple tape in the middle to remind me that it'd be in the middle, but I never remember to put it in the middle. Now I take the cardstock with the dies attached and put another layer on top of it, and I pull it apart, and it cuts amazing. And this is Nina 110-pound cardstock, so we're not talking about skimpy cardstock here. And I punch them out again, and then they come right out of this second piece of cardstock. And I did this every single time for all of my die cuts, and that's the beauty about the Misty, because you stamp them all in the same place, and then you can die cut them all in the same place. So I just sped this up to let you see it all. And these are all of the toucans and trees and flowers that I colored. It was so much fun. These are all of the surfboards that I colored. And that was also so much fun. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm taking the Tropical background stencil, and I'm laying that on my Nina 110-pound cardstock with my purple tape, and I'm putting my surfboard there just so I have a rough idea of where it's all going to lay out. And then I'm going to take my Distress Oxide inks. I have Twisted Citron, Ripe Persimmon, and Picked Raspberry, and I put labels on the sides of all of them, Jennifer McGuire style. I love her organization. We were just amazing. And I get my blending tools. Now, I have the tools, lots of tools, but not enough for every single foam applicator. So what I do is I got some coin pockets, and I'll link everything in the description. And I bought some little Velcro dots, and I made little swatches, and each applicator is stuck to the page, and that way I don't have to have a whole bunch of wooden tools. I just have to have a whole bunch of foam applicators, and I put them all back in there, and I store them on my table. And if you've never seen my craft room, check it out. I have a lot of really good organization ideas. I did some basic Distress oxide blending here. It's nothing exciting. I just wanted something bright and vibrant to kind of coincide with those, excuse me, surfboards. And there you go. It came out really good. I decided to use the Simon Says Stamp wonky rectangles to cut this out to make it a little bit smaller than an A2 size. It's one of my favorite die cuts. And I'm going to lay these surfboards on top of there. I had so many to choose from, it was hard to know which one to pick. As you can see, I'm kind of playing with the colors and seeing which one I like. And then I realized that I need to stamp my sentiment. I use my Misty. I put my cardstock in first, and then I put the Misty grid sheet down second, and then I put the stamp on top of that. So when I pull the stamp up, it doesn't move the cardstock, it just moves the grid sheet. I then take foam tape and put it behind each of the surfboards. Grab my T-ruler to make sure they're all lined up straight. I always put the middle one in first to make sure it's all lined up. I have my favorite things Limelight cardstock, and I'm scoring that with my bone folder, which I absolutely love. And I have some fun foam that I'm putting on the back of my cards. I use that a lot for dimension because it goes through the mail really, really nicely. And I have made an A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I always put an acrylic block on everything so it dries. I've taken this pretty pink Posh tropical background stencil with the Distress Oxide Right Persimmon ink. Covered that all up, and then I laid out my surfboards on top of a piece of white cardstock. Again, starting in the middle, I'm using some liquid glue here, and I don't know why it's so jerky. One of these days I'll figure it out. And I use liquid so it slides a little bit more. I was looking at that white area down there and I realized it was a little empty, so I found this really cool ribbon I have in my stash, and I used a really good strong adhesive on the sides, and I put that ribbon in between, lined it up in the center as you can see here, and then I grabbed some white twine from my stash, tied a knot, and I use these great tweezers to hold my knot tight. So while I'm tying my knot in my bow, cut the ends of it so it's a little short. And then I knew I wanted a sentiment of some sort, so I grabbed the Sunshine die cut. I cut 3 out of white cardstock, and then I realized that the white was a little bit boring, so I went to my stash and I found a scrap of pink. And after I layer together these 3 white die cuts, as you can see, I'm laying it out going, you can't really see it. I'll put the pink on top, and I keep all of my paper in a little ring like that. And if you want to know how I did it, just send me an email and I'll let you know. And I glued that on top of the card. I then took my Nouveau Crystal Glaze and put it on top of the Sunshine to give it a little extra shine, and that is the finished card. I then grabbed these New Jewels by Pretty Pink Posh and decided to put those on my cards with this little triangular magical bead tray, which I love. The way I do my beads is I lay them all out first to see where I want them and how I like them. I use my Crystal Catania. And then I pick them up with my left hand, put a little bit of glue down with my right, and that way I can kind of keep them in order. And then in the middle of the surfboard, I put a green color jewel, which you will see in the finished cards. I put this on a white 4 1/4, 5 1/2 card base. This is the Pretty Pink Posh background as well, which I absolutely love, and I put a layer of Brutus Monroe embossing ink on it. I am then going to sprinkle that in my coffee filter to contain it. That way it's also easy to pour it back in the container, and give it a tap to get all the excess off. And then I take my Distress Oxide Twisted Citron and I put a really good layer on top of this. I did white heat emboss it with my heat tool, and I made sure my heat tool was really hot. And then I wipe it off with my favorite microfiber cloths, and as I'm wiping it, you can see that the white is all showing through. And this is called the Tropical Leaves background. I cut it out with an inside-out rectangle. I have all of my supplies linked below. I wanted to get a little more interest, and this is how it looks when they're cut apart. I then took some foam tape and put it on the edges of the rectangle, and I put that on my card, and then I used adhesive tape on here, and in hindsight I wish I would have used liquid glue so I had a little more movement, so keep that in mind. I'm now grabbing all of those trees and toucans that I made, and I'm trying to figure out where I want them to be. I really didn't have any idea. I just left this in here to let you know that I just make the parts and then I put it all together. I don't always have an exact idea of what I want it to look like until I'm finished. This is my layout I came up with, and now I'm trying to figure out where I want to put my sentiment. I will again use Gina K Black Amalgam ink. I'll put the card down, and I put the toucans down and the trees with the grid on top so that I can line it all up. And I do stamp this 2 times so I get a really good even coverage. I love that you can do it. I kind of wish it said toucan do it, but there you go. I love that one. Putting more foam tape behind the trees only. I put a little dimension there. I wanted to show you how I laid that in there, and then I picked my bird up out of the way so that I knew that everything fit before I glued it all down. Put a little Wink of Stella on the bird beaks and the back of the yellow bird and on the flowers. I will then add some of those pretty pink Posh jewels to the center of each of the flowers in my magical bead tray. And there's my 3rd finished card. For my last card, I grabbed a watercolor background that I had made from a previous project. I always save everything. And I went and looked for different pieces of cardstock in my stash, and I just cut the whole die out of the different pieces of cardstock, and I layered them all together like a jigsaw puzzle. It was really fun. Some of the layers there's 2 layers thick: the treetop, the sun, and the ring around the hole, and the surfboard are all 2 layers. I put Wink of Stella on the sun. Here's the 2nd layer around the ring. You really can't see the 2nd layers on everything else. And then I do put Nouveau Crystal Grays on the surfboard. I'm cutting around the edges of that. Again, making another A2 card, gluing it all down. Liquid glue is so much easier. I do put some foam tape behind the circle, but before I did that, oh, that's not true. Actually, I did that and then I stamped it. So here's an example of all of my finished cards. I want to thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer.